Well, my friends from the Worshipful Company of Marketors have heard me say this before, but Chris, all my 82 years and all the introductions I've had, yours is the most recent. And looking around, I see that there are one or two people with ties on. Thank you, David, and thank you, Chris. I'm not doing wrong. But just because I wear a tie, because I'm 82 doesn't mean I'm out of date. You heard what Chris said. I spent a lot of my time with these business schools, funny little places like Warwick and Cranfield and Aston. There's also Shanghai as well on the list. But I spent a lot of my time working with small medium enterprises, about 30% of my time with small medium enterprises. And if you're chairman of a small medium enterprise, you have the same sort of problems. You can stand up at the front and lecture, but at the end of the day, you've got to deal with the issues of the day. And it's not easy. So I'm used to all that, and I'm very lucky. I work with the operating boards of many of the best companies in the world, so I'm a very lucky boy. But I think probably I learned more. You'll see that I'm representing the Worshipful Company of Marketors tonight. I reckon I probably learned more from my colleagues at the Worshipful Company of Marketors than from all of these other sources. So I keep myself up to date by being a member of the Worshipful Company of Marketors. Thank you to the Worshipful Company for that. When I talk to boards of directors, not all the boards of directors I talk to are of the same caliber. And very often, because marketing, generally speaking, not in fast-moving consumer goods, but generally speaking, in business-to-business, marketing has a bad name. And when I turn up at these boards of directors, operating boards, they sit there like this, which means, who is this odious little toad of a professor of marketing, and what's he going to tell us that's got anything to do with anything? And I'm sure that those of you in marketing have all been through this sort of this body language stuff. And when I ask them, I say, okay, take a pen or pencil, write down in order of priority, what are your key target markets in order of priority, your key target markets, and write against each one your sources of differential advantage. What they do, almost 99% of the time, they start writing their wretched products down. And I said, I didn't ask you to write your products down, I asked you to write your markets down in order of priority and your differential advantage. And they can't do it. You think, well, what sort of a board of directors is this? How does a company make money? By selling something to somebody? You better know who out there you want to sell to. You better understand their needs, and you better make them an offer that makes them want to buy from you rather than from somebody else. And the days of product differentiation have gone anyway. I mean, all products today, you read the Harvard Business Review, read any business magazine today, all products today are excellent. I'm lucky, I go to these conferences and we have an audience response system, and you get 1,000 people there, and so you can get honest answers from them. And you say, hands up anybody who's got an excellent product. Well, not hands up, press the button, guess what? 100% are excellent products. Hands up anybody who hasn't got an excellent, guess what? 0. All products today are excellent. You're not going to get any differential advantage from the product. Those days have gone. And they haven't forgotten the days of IBM that thought they were in the 80s, thought they were in the main business, or Gestetner, who thought they were in the duplicator business, or Kodak, who thought they were in the film business, or Nokia, who thought they were in the phone business, and so on and so forth. Those days are gone. Forget those days. Today, it's the way you relate to your markets that's going to make the difference. Now, you might be wondering what's this got to do with branding, but let me just say, I'm talking about powerful brands. I am not going to talk about fast-moving consumer goods companies, because they're mostly a bit of crap. I was marketing director, as Chris said, at Canada Drive. Look, if you don't understand marketing and you don't implement it, you're going to die. So I'm not going to talk about that tonight. I'm going to business to business. And I am not going to talk about what passes for brands, which is logos. The world is awash with logos. 99% of all logos are about as useful as a bird of prey with a squint. I mean, what? You know, every time you get a new chief executive in a company, guess what the first thing they do is they mess about with the logo. I can see one or two of these people laughing. And what do they think they're doing? Even, I will not mention this particular university, but the vice-chancellor of a particular university that I'm associated with, guess the first thing he did? Messed about with the logo. Nobody. I would say there are probably 50 logos that anybody might recognise out there. But why do they do it? I'm not going to talk about logos, I promise you. So, I don't know why I said I'd do this, but I said I'd do a very quick sort of reprise of the last 50 years of management marketing. So let's do that. And you'll see that not fast-moving consumer goods, but generally speaking, you know, even companies like Marks and Spencer's, you know, brilliant brand names like that, even companies like that, in a real mess today, the marketing community. And the Worshipful Company has just done some research that says that the marketing community, chief marketing officers from business to business community are desperately confused about, you know, what's happening in the world. But what's happened? This was the Industrial Revolution, and what's happened? I'll go through this very quickly. But the accountants, they took over. I mean, the fads didn't work. About 300 fads I've identified. They didn't work. You know, silly things like In Search of Excellence and the 7 S's and the 6 C's and all the rest of it. You know, absolutely nonsense, that sort of stuff. I mean, take In Search of Excellence. You're all too young to remember that, except the people sitting there. But there were 43 companies. 8 years later, only 6 left. The guy became a millionaire from talking a load of nonsense. One of the things he said, I'll tell you what these people do. He's strutting around the stage. He said, I'll tell you what people do. They do management by wandering around, MBWA. That's it. Management by wandering around, he said. And I said this to somebody in one of my graduate meetings. I said, we're not sophisticated for that matter. We do MBFA. And there were ladies in the audience. I thought, what's he going to say? I said, well, what's MBFA? He said, management by flying around. Oh, thank goodness. But these guys have taken the ascendancy, and I don't know whether anybody has read the last Sunday Times piece on, there was a pull-out on chief marketing officers. And they're doing exactly what chief marketing officers should be doing. So if anybody wants a copy of it, that thing, I'll get it reduced in size so that it becomes manageable. I'll send you a copy of the Financial Times, not mine, but I might send it to you. You send it. Okay. But the point is, what they're currently doing is run its course. I call it anorexia industrialosa, an excessive desire to be leaner and fitter, leading to emaciation and eventually death. How many pence can you take out of a pound? You know, it's nonsense, isn't it? Whereas the business we're in, which is value creation, that's infinite and is only limited by our creativity and imagination. But these guys are beginning to take over even from these guys. And, you know, this is a big, big threat. And the reason I'm saying this is because if you're going to talk about brands, you have to understand the context in which we're all living. So, fads instead of marketing strategy. Fads, let's have a look at fads. The great man Shelby Hunt said, the intellectual roots of many marketing excellence programs are often shallow and lie not in the rich soil of management science, but in the distorted, abused, and sloppy concept of simplistic management fads. Like I was talking to 3 guys in the pub, or whatever. It's absolute nonsense. And then we've got profit and loss accounts, balance sheets, just a quick thing on those. Digital strategy without marketing strategy, and the failure to develop financially quantified value propositions, and the impact of technology on marketing. Let me go through this very, very quickly. I mean, this is a typical profit and loss account, and you'll notice that for most of the profit and loss accounts I've seen over my life, there's only one line for revenue. One line for revenue, and there's 860 lines for costs. So everything we do is reduced to one line. And it doesn't tell you anything, it means anything. This looks brilliant because over 5 years, they doubled their turnover, contribution doubled, the net profit tripled, return on sales doubled, asset turnover went up, return on assets tripled. Absolutely marvellous, until the marketers who should have been doing the job didn't, because they were messing around with digital. They didn't do the job they were supposed to do. And you'll never guess what happened to this company eventually, because when you look at underneath all of this, and you say, well, what was happening in the market? The market grew faster than them every year, so their market share went down from 20 to less than 15. Customer retention used to keep almost 90% of their customers, now they're losing a third of their customers every year. Does it matter? Of course it matters. If you read the Bain & Company stuff and Forrester and Harvard Business Review, they say that, something like up to 75–80%, if you just reduce your customer loss by 5%, up go your profits. They're not stupid, these companies, but look at this company. What were the marketers doing? If you break it down into segments, this big segment here, the big segment 3, 27% of all revenue, but only 14% of industry profits, their best performance, which was still pathetic, was in that one. This little one here, just over 10% of the market, but 25% almost of industry profits, look, worst one of all. Why weren't these people reporting this to the board? Where were they? They were doing a bit of digital, weren't they? A bit of social marketing, that's what they were doing. And come back to this, look. Dissatisfied customers, market research, gone on. Relative product quality, pimply little me too, relative service quality negative, and so on and so forth. That's what marketers should be reporting. What are they reporting? I don't know. On what they do. I just don't know what they're doing, these people. They're not doing what they should be doing, and there are other things which I'll come to. But look, the reality is the customer is the actual axis of the business, and every activity from R&D right through to after-sales service is represented by the offer you make, and that offer has a name on it. Now, let's call that the brand for now. So I'll come to what the meaning of brand is later on. But the value proposition represented by the brand, and yet, my estimate is only 2% of companies in the UK have got financially quantified value propositions. The reason I know, again, is the audience response system. McKinsey say 5%, I know it's less than that. Can I explain what a financially quantified value proposition is? And then I ask them on the audience response system, and it comes up at about 2 or 3%. And again, you think, what are the marketers doing? Where are they? They're being sidelined, aren't they? They're doing something. I don't know what they're doing, but they're not doing the job that marketing is all about. And of course, does it matter? If you take another famous brand, SKF, they charge 50% premium over their competitors, but look, they've proven it financially that that's the extra value you get by spending more up front. And they've got vast databases to prove this. And that's what all the best companies do. Always have done and always will do. And the reason I know this is because one of the research clubs I've got at Cranfield is a key account management research club. And every buying director I ever get along, I get 5 a year along, they all use exactly the same matrix, which is this one. This is attractiveness high and low from the supplier, or differentiation high and low. We buy a little, we buy a lot. The point I want to make here very quickly is that only 1% of suppliers are up here. They're different, and we buy a lot. 1% of them. Isn't that awful? 1%? And for those companies, they're prepared to pay between 15 and 25% premium. Where are the rest of them? Guess what? Down here. Trading on price. Why? Because they don't have financially quantified value propositions. And of course, price is a big problem. For this particular thing with a nice high margin, if you get a 5% discount, give a 5% discount to the customer, you're going to sell a third more, 10% discount. It's totally ruinous to an organisation. Anybody who lives in Britain as a company thinks they can trade on price. Must be 6 bricks short of a 12-pack. How can anybody trade on price in this country? You can't. At the end of the day, it has to be about differentiation. And you'll see how this leads into branding later on. But just marketing and technology. Look, we've forgotten the basic needs of customers and the fundamental business drivers. that have caused long-term success. We've forgotten it. And what you've got, people say, we live in a very different world. You've all seen this. You probably saw it on the tube coming here. Notice they're all Chinese. I didn't say that. But look, it's a very different world, isn't it? Or is it? 70 years ago when I was a lad, it was exactly the same. Nothing's changed. The only thing that's changed is, the media have changed. The fundamentals haven't changed. And we're losing step. Look, you take this. If you want to be a hero, use these words: blockchain, augmented reality, predictive analytics, robotics, artificial intelligence, and so on. Use them in a meeting, and when you've used them, just pull your chair back like that, and slightly withdraw from the meeting. They'll think you're a technological genius, and you can keep quiet for the rest of the meeting. And I'll tell you what, we've got to understand and embrace them, whether we like it or not. I mean, the point, there's a society I'm a member of, and I was very sad recently when we were looking at the role of, or the impact of technology on chief marketing officers. And I'll tell you what, every time we had a technical expert along, the audience asked questions about the technology. Never once did anybody ask the technical expert, what's the impact of that technology on creating value for customers? It's all that matters at the end of the day. Once we understand the technology, not as experts, but sufficiently understand it and understand how it can create value for customers, then we're going to go back into the boardroom. One other thing, look, if you want to go bankrupt, do you remember all the customer relationship marketing CRM stuff? Wasn't it wonderful? Happy, clappy, touchy, feely, weepy, creepy, happy, clappy, open-toed sandals, delight customers. You want to go bankrupt? Believe that. It's absolute nonsense. Always has been, always will be. And if you look at this, the world has changed very dramatically. 40 years ago, we didn't really have this properly. I mean, I had it in Canada Dry, but it was, it was okay. Now, so many major global customers are so big, they're like markets in their own right. And they have to be treated separately. They can't be part of the marketing community. And so that bit was taken away from us. Now you've got account-based marketing, which is a major, major activity, a major, major movement, which is changing the face of marketing. And I won't talk about that tonight. This is where marketing began. It's where all the theory was developed. It's where all the business schools teach marketing. That's where they teach it. And of course, this bit down here has changed the world as well. Because we took those channels, these small, medium enterprises, away from the sales force because they were too expensive to do that. And we put them on call centers and the internet. But what I'm saying is, there's no such thing as a customer. And in any case, if you look at this, this is a real company, and its sales broken down into deciles, and you've got decile by profit, and you'll see the biggest percentage, group of customers, decile, is losing money, and the small ones are losing money as well. Why? Because some numpty read a book on relationship marketing and said you've got to deny them. Absolute nonsense. And I mean, I'll give you a classic example of this. As marketing director of Canada Dry, you take two particular big customers that we had. One was Tesco and one was Sainsbury. They both took about 3 million dozen a year. The problem was, and they were about the same discount. The problem was that Tesco, they used to insist on daily just-in-time delivery, store by store. That cost a fortune. I had 200 salespeople. They insisted they call on every store to do what was called in those days, you were too young to remember this, merchandising. And guess what? They took about 160 days to pay their accounts. And you get some big head who thinks, well, why do you deal with them, who doesn't understand the fundamentals of business? You can't lose vast amounts of market share like that. So you had to deal with them. Sainsbury, on the other hand, said, keep your tacky lorries away from our lovely market stores. Just deliver it in our central warehouse, one lorry, one invoice, They said, keep your working class sales force. I love it at market stores. Don't want them. Love them. And they paid their accounts in 45 days. What does it make profit for a company? Is it your wretched products? No. It's the cost of dealing with your customers after the product left the office, the factory, isn't it? And yet, the majority, and here we are in 2019, the majority of accounting systems out there, you have a look at your own when you get back, the majority of accounting systems still do product profitability. They're counting the wrong things. You've got to do both. But, you know, in the case of Tesco and Sainsbury, you marmalade the fixed costs across the volume, and that would penalise Sainsbury for being brilliant and reward Tesco for being horrible. And when I go to these companies, I go to the finance director, I explain all this. It's called activity-based costing. We've had it for 40 years. And I'll tell you what, the finance director always comes back and he goes, oh, God, he said, we hadn't realised we were losing money by dealing with these big customers and small customers. So that's just a little message, but this is all in the context of branding. And incidentally, again, my audience response to this, look, how well over 5 years, how well do you know the real profitability of the top 10 accounts? Guess what? Look at this one. Not at all. Isn't that disgraceful? Awful. So, and what about balance sheets? We don't really know how to measure intangible assets properly. This is a balance sheet. You've all seen them. What we own, sources of finance, it balances. You hadn't realised that's why they call it a balance sheet, but that's why they call it a balance sheet. It balances. And guess what? Any numpty that believes that should be sacked, because that's what they publish. And guess what? Somebody comes along and offers you 100 million for it. You tell them to get lost. And guess what? You eventually argue with them. They pay you 900 million. The problem you've got now is it doesn't balance, does it? Let me show you how quickly you can fix that. You ready for this? You know how you fix it, don't you, Chris? You know, what you do is you just go, whoop, there you go. Good work. Balance that. That's the first time in the history of the company that the mistake made by the accountants in valuing our company comes to light. But it takes an acquisition or the threat of an acquisition to work out how big the mistake is. Now, that's all we've got, folks. That's everything that we've got. The world is full of land and buildings and offices and factories, and it's not them that make profit. Never has been. It's the dealing with your customers, and that's all that's important. So when you start thinking about branding, you've got to start thinking about this. So just a few stats. Look, this was, we've got somebody in the room who was a senior director with Procter & Gamble. They're not stupid. They paid £31 billion for Gillette, but they only got £4 billion of assets. They must be stupid, mustn't they? Totally must be stupid. Who the hell? When Roundtree's bought Nestle, do you think they wanted a factory in York? The world's full of factories in York. What do they want? They want what Gillette's got, what they wanted with Gillette. And so, if you look at, this is a summary of a summary of a summary, but 73% of all corporate value in the United States is intangible. In Britain, it's 64% is intangible. So it's pretty important stuff that we're talking about tonight. It's very, very important. And we need to get a better grip of it than we've got at the moment. And, I mean, look at, these are B2B brands, but look, according to Brands' top 100 most valuable brand study, total brand value increased by 21% to reach $4.4 trillion. It's pretty impressive, isn't it? And if you look at this, most of these are technology companies, but these are vast sums of money that aren't reflected in the tangible assets. There's some interesting stuff on here, like, it's interesting, IBM showed a negative figure. And one or two other surprises, but there's the first brand that comes up, for example, on the board, Chris, is that one, Shell, still growing. We used to do the brand valuation at Brand Finance when I used to be chairman. We used to do the brand valuation every year for Shell. Shell know exactly what the brand is worth. They invest in it, they build it up, nobody's allowed to mess with it. It's sacrosanct. I'll give you another Shell slide later on. But look, somebody said to me, it doesn't matter who, a friend of mine said to me recently, that people, they market trust. And I say, wouldn't it be lovely if people marketed trust? Most companies don't market trust. You only market trust if you have some kind of emotional relationship with the thing you're buying, or if it costs a lot of money. No, I don't want an emotional relationship with my toothbrush, thank you very much, or with my coat. I don't want an emotional relationship with a packet of screws, thank you very much indeed. I mean, it's a complete load of nonsense, this stuff. And, but when you start thinking about brands, this is, if you've got all the economists in the world and laid them end to end, you'd leave them there, wouldn't you? Sorry, did I say that? I didn't say that. But humans aren't rational. I've never in my life met a rational person. And I'm 82. I've never met a rational person until tonight. Right? But this is neurology. There's a thing, if you want to read it, it's in a journal called Scan. Neurologists, you remember the Coca-Cola, Pepsi-Cola test that's been going for 40 years? When you do the test, and if they're blind, they prefer Pepsi-Cola. When the label goes on, they prefer Coca-Cola. It goes on and on and on and on, ever. Well, they did the same test with these people with the emotional bit of the brain was damaged. And guess what? It didn't make any difference. They still preferred Pepsi-Cola. And the proof of this was there is an emotional part of us that is connected with brands. And I think this guy Baker, I love this, he said, extreme case has to be skincare ads. Who on earth would believe the incredulous, ludicrously pseudoscientific, indigestible gulag of molecules and meaningless polysyllables? But they do. But people do with golf clubs as well. They're my colleagues. You could put the same words, golf clubs. Extreme care has to be golf clubs. Who on earth would believe that incredible?
No, that's different.
So,
That's different.
Did you believe it when you bought your golf club? Did it transform your golf?
Longer, straighter.
Okay, but you know what I'm saying. And, this is a summary of where I'm at. All products that are excellent, so product innovation, although essential, offers only temporary advantage. World-class customer engagement is the bedrock. Now, I'm going to get into branding in a minute, but market segmentation, branding and positioning are the bedrock of successful, profitable customer engagement. In that positioning, wherever I go in the world, because you're a professor of marketing, they want you to talk about advertising and branding. And I said, no. Tell me about your company. Tell me about your markets. Tell me about your segments. Tell me about your competitors. You can't do any of that. You can't have a branding or positioning until you've got the basics right. And that's what all the best companies in the world do. So just a little bit on that. I've got 127 scholarly references. If anybody is sufficiently boring to want me to send them to, I will do. But this is the link between financial success and excellent marketing strategies. What do excellent strategies do? They understand markets in depth. Sounds basic. I'm amazed the number of people I meet who don't understand how their markets are working. They don't understand who makes the decisions. They don't understand the value chain properly from end to end. But even if you did, you've then got to say, there's no such person as a customer. Let's do needs-based segments. Not the garbage that's taught in most business schools about socioeconomics and demographics and geodemographics. And as I say frequently, Prince Charles and Ozzy Osbourne are both socioeconomic group A, but I don't think they behave the same. And they do, I don't know. And I don't believe that all women between the ages of 18 and 20 behave the same. It's absolute nonsense. Never has worked, never will. There's some numpties around today, I promise you, there are some numpties in marketing departments around today who talk about millennials as a segment. You want to stab yourself in the eye with a fork? Millennials are a segment. They need to find another job, don't they, these people? But when you've got the proper needs-based segments, you make a specific offer to each, then you've got, look, this is where it happens. Differentiation, positioning, and branding doesn't happen without all this stuff up here, the boring stuff. And that's what the best companies in the world do. It's what we do in Canada, really. And of course, this is getting quite big, anticipating the future because it's all changing. But look, I mean, Harvard Business Review, 90% of new consumer products are launched each year and they fail. Why? They get the fundamentals wrong. And don't ask people stupid questions. This is why 95% of all market research is a waste of money, because people go out with questionnaires and ask consumers or customers stupid, idiotic questions. Why did you buy this? Why did you do that? And you get rational answers. I mean, I've got a friend who is a millionaire. He's a Yorkshireman. Sorry about this, he's a Yorkshireman. He's a millionaire. He's an engineer. He's an economist, a chief executive. He is the most rational person on planet Earth. My God, he's boring. I'm going to make a practice one. But no, seriously, I've known him for years and years and years. And one day, I know he did this. He got the brochures for 20 models of cars. He was buying a new car. And he did a spreadsheet on his laptop. And he analysed them all according to the features. But he had a scoring system, 3-tier scoring, but he wasn't stupid. He knew that price was less important than speed, for example. So he had a weighting system as well. And he took him ages to do it. He scored every single car, multiplied the score by the weight, and he came out with a rank order. And one Saturday morning, having breakfast, there's a true. He says to me, you've got a spreadsheet now. He said, Mark, what would you do if you were me? I said, let's have a look at your spreadsheet, tell me. And I said, well, buy the Ford Granada, or whatever it was. He went, something like that. I said, well, buy the Volvo, second. God, he said, it's difficult. I said, okay, well, buy the third one, whatever it was, a Fiat or something. God, he said, it's difficult. I said, what's difficult about it? I said, they came 1, 2, and 3. He said, it's really, really difficult, Malcolm. I said, it isn't, Tony, you've got your spreadsheet. I said, what car do you want, Tony? He said, God, it's really difficult. It was number 19 on his list. He said, I quite fancy a BMW. I said, you can't have a BMW, Tony. It's number 19 on your list. He said, it's bloody difficult, isn't it? Guess what he went out and bought? BMW. And you questionnaire. He's not going to say it's a surrogate for his mistress, is it? He's not going to say, I'm boring, so it makes it a bit more exciting. He's going to say things like that. He's going to start talking about the associated corpuscular emissions for 0.0 gram of air and things like that. And the world is like that. And if you're spending a lot of money, or if you are in some way emotionally attached to it, like you might be to video and that sort of thing, then that's where branding really comes into its own. But for the majority of things that we buy, we just don't care that much. We really don't care. All they do at the best is help us to avoid disadvantage rather than create advantage for us. We know the categories where goods and services create advantage for us, and then we take some care over them, and then the brand becomes very important. So don't ask people stupid questions. And of course, Mark Ritson, London Business School, says if your segmentation is wrong, your targeting and position will always be wrong. And this one, I showed Glyn in the audience here this about 3 months ago at Derby Business School, Ashton Business School. This was actually, you wouldn't believe it, on the website of a technology company. Would you believe it? That's what it said on the website. Fast pad family, multimedia fans, PIX file, gigabit Ethernet. This lady here, I mean, you're coming up to gagging to get some gigabit Ethernet. I mean, you can't wait, can you? I'll finish it. Get some gigabit Ethernet. I mean, what's it got to? Look at most companies' websites. They're a laughing stock, aren't they? They say, me, I do this, I do it. Nobody cares. These are buyers of IT and IS. A proper market segmentation study. Look, save the budget, you could picture it. You picture him or her. Business general, save my career, conservative technocrat, technical idealist. You'd recognise it as a perceptual map. The technical ones are not. Profit engineer. But the thing is, now your CRM system will work. Your big data will work. Everything will work because you've got them properly categorised. And you can understand them. And you can then choose which ones you're going to star in, and you can position your brand and you can communicate with them in a meaningful way. But if you haven't done this boring stuff behind the scenes, don't talk to me about branding. It's not going to work. And look, this was 3,500 sample frame. Marketers broadcast identical messages across all the media. And most of it is wasted because it's missing the point. And the point I make about this is that you never sell anything to a company. You never have and you never will sell anything to a company. You sell to people in companies, and they're exactly the same as consumers. And you've got to go through this quite serious intellectual process of working out who these people are and what's going to motivate them. So, this is a summary. Identify the core market. Don't try to be all things to all people. The 80-20 rule works perfectly here for the Rome scale. Don't try to be all things. It just doesn't work. It never has and never will do. So let's get on to the boring stuff. Brand equity. Now, brand equity, ladies and gentlemen, is a financial term. I have never in my life met anybody yet who knows how to measure brand equity. Anybody knows how to measure? It's a financial term. Anybody who does a PhD and can crack this one will become millionaires, I promise you. It's all over the place. It's different from customer equity because that's much more measurable. I'll come to that shortly. But the thing is, it is in customers' heads, which makes it involve subjective judgment. So assigning a financial value to it is different. Just look at this, for example. So my father's company here, McDonald's, 33.5 billion into brand, brand, 66 billion. It's all over the place, isn't it? Very, very difficult to assign financial values to them. And if you look at how you do this in a technical sense, and I made a decision, Chris, not to do technical stuff here, but there is some technical stuff in the appendices for those who want it. And for those who are completely devoid of any humanity, it's all in this book. And there's a famous author on there. But it's as boring as hell, but it tells you how you can actually put a financial value on these things. There's a whole chapter devoted to these things here. I mean, the one we used to use in Brand Finance was Royalty Relief. That's not to downplay what Interbrand did and Milton Brown and all the others. Because it depends very much whether you are looking to value a brand for the purpose of balance sheet reporting or acquisition or taxation, all of these things. But what we do have now, we've got an ISO standard for it, which is good. So at least you can say, I've used this method to arrive at this figure. Okay, so it's getting there, but it's still not an exact science. And the great man, David Acker, I met him recently, well, about 2 years ago. He says, brand equity is a set of assets inherent in a brand that add value to a firm and its customers. Customer equity, I want to focus a bit more on this tonight, is the sum of the customer lifetime values of the organization. But this is the point. Brand equity focus drives product and brand investment decisions. Customer equity focus is on customer management, but they're not mutually exclusive. They occur in both companies. I mean, all the best companies, they focus on their brand and they do all that work, but they also focus on building relationships with customers. Customer equity as well. The two things aren't mutually exclusive. Indeed, one of our members, Tim Ambler, London Business School, brilliant guy. What did he say? He's a member of the Worshipful Company of Marketors, like all the rest of the bar, okay? But what did he say? He said brand equity and customer equity represent different perspectives of the same intangible asset, as the financial worth in both cases is estimated by taking the net present values of the same future cash flows. So they're very difficult to separate them. And you know, when you think about, I'm going to move away from brand equity in a moment, because I don't think we've solved this conundrum. But this is what Philip Kotler says. And I'm a very lucky boy, because Philip Kotler, you've all heard of Philip Kotler, haven't you? I'm a very lucky boy. He writes to me once a month. He's a great man. I'm not saying he asks my advice, but I give it to him without him asking me. But that's what he says. He says, it's a major contribution to customer equity, and brand management serves as a major marketing tool to extend the customer lifetime value. They work hand in hand. But look, what does the word brand mean anyway? You know, it's bandied around. The world's full of those. Complete waste of time for most of us. All of us is a brand. Every one of us is a brand. Museum of Brands is a brand. I'm a brand. So on and so forth. But you know, unless the logo adds some kind of financial value, it's just a logo. You might own it, but it's just a logo, and it's not doing any good. When you get to this one, and you take something like the Guinness process, you know, that's licensable. And the Mercedes engineering process, licensable. And brilliant, you know, approach to the world. And then you get the holistic company or organization brand. What I want to do for the rest of my, because we didn't start till 5 past. It's okay. I want to move on because I want to give the audience time to disagree with me. But I want to focus on this one, if I may. Holistic company or organization brand. Partly because it's easier to measure. You can measure that. And here's the theoretical model of brand equity. It's a theoretical model which you've got, you know, customers, you've got affects audience behavior, increased acquisition rates, volume and values, revenues, you've got suppliers, better terms and business and higher discounts, direct costs, you've got staff, drives down staff expense and increases efficiency, overheads, and financial, drives down equity and borrowing costs, cost of capital. That's a theoretical model. Now you look at the real one. First logo on your chart downstairs, Shareholder. What I found interesting about Shareholder was that when they were one of my clients, and we were doing boring things like SWOT analyses in different markets. Every single market they were in, forget the petrol market, but every single business-to-business market they were in, without exception, Shell was number one, always. So I've been doing this for BP, and guess what? BP would recognise that Shell were number one. And you think, well, how do they do it? The answer is, if you look at this famous brand here, so they know exactly how much it's worth, but you get customers, they pay a price premium, just like the SKF. Just like that, they pay a price premium. You know what they're getting for it. They buy more. Suppliers, we get lower prices from suppliers, better terms, willingness to partner, more opportunities. Employees, better retention, lower salary expectations, better qualified candidates, still today, like that. Shareholders, bankers, higher PE ratio, lower volatility, lower borrowing costs, better repayment conditions, and so on and so forth. It's real. It's actually real. It translates into real money. Real money. And, you know, so it stops being a bit of theory, a bit of academic theory. Because when you talk about shareholder value, shareholder value is, whether we like it or not, there's a big argument raging at the moment You know, all those organisations that did sign the big contract recently, what was it called, David? A couple of weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, they signed this great big thing saying they're going to pay more attention to stakeholders as opposed to just shareholders. Anyway, great big thing, and they sung and dance about it. And I don't believe 90% of it, because many of the companies are the worst companies in the world, according to the research. And yet they're signing this paper saying, we're going to be good citizens, we're going to look at our stakeholders and not just the shareholders and so on and so forth. But the reality is that if you think about it, capital markets, like it or not, shareholder value added is really the only sensible way of valuing a company. Having taken account of the cost of capital, the time value of money, and the risks, I want to start focusing on the risks associated with your strategy. Because for the Marks and Spencers of the world and those sorts of organisations, the risks are massive. Risks are written to visible at the top of everybody's agenda, because we're not quite sure what's going to happen with disruption and the rest of it. But it doesn't matter, it applies just as equally to a small medium enterprise. If I've got £20,000 invested in my company and the cost of capital is 10%, and I make £1,500 profit, I've destroyed £500 of the shareholder value. What numpty would want to do that? If I make £2,000, I've neither created nor destroyed shareholder value. If I make £2,500, I've created £500 of the shareholder value. And that's all that matters, because if you don't create shareholder value, you end up a bit like an ICI. They were a wonderful company, ICI. Their corporate social responsibility policies were second to none. They were good with local communities, charities. All employees loved them, they worshipped them. They just weren't as good as DuPont and Shell and companies like that for creating shareholder value. Consequently, 200,000 people unemployed, no longer giving money to charities, no longer supporting local communities. So whether we like it or not, it's not going to go away. You have to actually create shareholder value. And this is the way all stock markets work. Recently I was with the managing director of the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, exactly the same. This is the risk return, it's the risk return, it's called the beta. And if you take this point here, let's say the weighted average return on investment is 10%, and you're making 9.5%, you're destroying shareholder value. You're making more than 10%, you're creating shareholder value. The problem is, these people aren't fooled by that, and they'll mark your shares down if they don't think it's sustainable. So all that matters to the stock exchanges of the world is sustainability. It's got to be sustainable competitive advantage. And that's what the best companies in the world do. They spend a lot of time with the investment community. Their strategies are robust. They think about the future. And I'll tell you what, they know that they haven't taken account of the risks, that they're going to keep on growing in the capital value of shares year after year. So it isn't, the point I'm making, it isn't the investment community in the short term, it's managers in the short term. Seriously, it's managers in the short term, not the investment community. It's one of the biggest myths in my view. And that's the way stock exchanges work. Now I just want to talk about this. It's all written about in that boring book, Marketing and Finance, sponsored by the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants. And I've done this with many organizations where you take the written strategy, if they've got one, you take a written strategy, and all strategies say the same thing. They say the market is this big and it's going to grow this much. They say, in this market that's this big and it's going to grow this much, this is our strategy to grow our market share and our volume. And in this market that's this big and our strategy, this is how much profit we're going to make. They all say that. Now you can actually take any strategy and you can break it down into its component parts, its three component parts, and you can do a risk assessment on them using the technology and the methodologies that we teach in business schools, some business schools. So you take the first one, market risk. You'll see that this is, without boring the pants off you, this is a probabilistic process. It's called expected value. You all know how it works. But what you do, you say the market is going to be this big. But on the other hand, when iPads and iPods and things like that were new, they were a bit riskier than they are now. They're not risky now, because everybody knows what they are. You take segment existence, men's cosmetics, when they first came out, it's dodgy, but now it's a well-established, big, growing market, as you can tell by looking at me. And there are lots of technical methods you can use for questioning whether the market is going to grow at the rate that they claim it is. And so, instead of the market being, say, 10 billion, so it's going to be 9 billion or whatever, but you agree this with the senior people, directors. So it's changing. When you say, well, all the things I was talking about earlier, right? Have we done proper segmentation? And so on and so forth. I won't go into this other than to say that there is a well-rehearsed, well-documented process for saying, is this strategy going to work? Fast-moving consumer goods companies are very good at this. But so are companies like 3M and DuPont and Shell and companies like that. So in this market that you said was going to be 10 billion, we reckon it's going to be 9 billion. Instead of making whatever you thought you were going to make, you're not going to make that much because, we can discuss it with you, but we can prove you're not going to make that much. And then you get the final one, which always makes me smile a lot, because this is where I was bringing the accountant into play. And I said, could you give me, for example, on one of your major products, could you give me the weighted average return on sales over the past 5 years? And they can do that quite easily. And then guess what? Suddenly, it's going to go like that, isn't it? It's been going like that, but suddenly it's going to go like that. With no evidence. And people put this rubbish in plans, don't they? And it gets this, it gets the attention of the directors and what have you. And, internal gross margin assumptions and so on and so forth. Like competitor impact. We're going to smash the biggest competitor in the market, and guess what they're going to do when we smash them? They're going to go, ooh, aren't you clever? We're not going to respond in any way to this. So, that's the theory. And then, this is the way we do it. If you take these either countries or markets, or segments, or even key customers, that's where that one is now, that's where it's going to be in 3 years' time. What you've done is you've adjusted the net free cash flows over year 1, 2, and 3 in the plan. You've adjusted them and taken account of the risks. You've done that probabilistic process. So you end up with future cash flows risk adjusted. Then what you do, you go to the accountant and they will always tell you how much capital you can assign to each one of those either countries, markets, or customers. They know. They also know what the cost of capital is. So if you multiply the cost of capital by the amount of capital that's invested in them, if it's positive, it's raising shareholder value. If it's not, it's destroying shareholder value. And it works very well. It's approved by accountants, and it's all about risk. And I just think that we need to pay a bit more attention to this whole issue of risk in future, because it's getting higher and higher and higher and higher. But there is a way of dealing with it. Now, little summary. I've still got 4 minutes. There's 4 minutes. Summary. The 4 ways that you can increase enterprise value. Invest in markets and customers that earn more than the cost of capital. That means you've got to know what the cost of capital is. I often do a test. Try not to embarrass people. I won't do it tonight. How many marketers actually know the cost of capital? How can you run anything if you don't know what the cost of capital is? It's what rules the world, isn't it? What rules the world, the cost of capital. And of course, common sense. Invest in customers or markets that earn more than the cost. And this one, reduce expenditure in markets customers that earn less than the cost of capital. That means you've got to have a system that understands how real profits are made once the product left the factory, cost of dealing with customers, not product profitability. And reducing the cost of capital by reducing marketing risk. That's what I've just been talking about. So, look, successful brands build trust. So I agree with my Worshipful Company of Marketors. Successful brands do build trust. And I'll come back to this, but they continuously innovate around the core. They make it famous. They make it easy to buy. That's place, distribution. The whole organisation lives the brand at all touch points. And it's the result of years of hard work, creativity, innovation, investment, and a deep understanding of changing customer needs. It's like a way of life. There's more to that. That's just a very, very quick headline summary. But the price-quality trade-off, win-win, offer consistently superior value. The result, super profits through higher volume and margins, unsuccessful brands, cut corners, reduce costs, tell lies. You've all seen the picture of the gorilla with the lipstick on, haven't you? Lipstick on the gorilla. We'll put some gold packaging on this crap product, Add some gold to that result, eventually become commodities and they trade on price. So, is marketing a dark cloud? I think the great brands, the brightest star in the firmament. And just so I can finish on time, anybody I haven't insulted who wants a personal insult, if you drop me an email, I'll send you one tomorrow or on Wednesday, whatever I've got the time to do it. But I've got some appendices here. I've got like identification record. This is more financial stuff. How do you recognise, financially, this is the law. Residual goodwill, how do you measure that? And so on and so forth. So let's come back to this. What I'm saying, ladies and gentlemen, is I personally am a great fan, as you can imagine, of powerful branding. But a brand, to me, is only really meaningful if it creates super profits, if it creates shareholder value. And that's what the best brands have always done. They will go on doing it for many, many years. And that's a million miles removed from what many people think a brand is. So I'll give you a little bit of how you measure it, a little bit, not much, but a little bit. And I think I've paid absolutely on time, down on time, exactly 1 hour. Promised to do. And what I said, you'll get the slides. Whether you like it or not, you'll get the slides. Right? Is that right? Maybe. Yes, whether you like it or not, you'll get the slides. Because the thing is, you might find it useful to use some of the slides in your own presentations. I'm one of those professors who believes that the role of the professor is to profess. You don't say, my copyright, you can't have it. You should promulgate this stuff. So please feel free to use my slides in any way that you find you don't get locked up. And what we can do now, I hope, is we can possibly spend at least a few minutes with some questions. Yes, young David.
Do you think that brand equity is being hijacked by people selling technology disruptive technologies, and it's a way of justifying the values that are being on products like WeWork, Uber, Deliveroo, all these disruptive technologies? Do you think this concept of brand equity is being used as a way of persuading people to put investment into it?
Well, you're probably right, but not if you've got a conscious process for managing your brands. It's going to be safe. If you're not in charge of your brands and you're not in charge of marketing, that kind of dissipation is going to happen. I agree. Have you got any views on that?
It's just that WeWork recently had a massive valuation, lots of investment, and then somebody looked at the figures below it and found out it was making huge losses. And I was just wondering whether this concept of brand equity has become really powerful because people buy into that. want to invest in the unicorn, isn't it? It's making huge losses, but also
David, could you speak up so that they can all
it's
listen?
making huge losses in its core business, but also its management is now looking at everything else and trying to do lots and lots of other stuff. The core business doesn't make money, never will, and it's already spending money on other stuff that never make money. So it counts to see it as a business. And Uber is the same. Uber cannot make money in the core business, never will. But it's already diversifying into lots of other things. So
Amazon did it. I mean, Amazon, how long did it take Amazon to break even?
the next money out of the car.
Can I ask you a question about Western short-termism? I mean, the average lifespan of a chief exec of a UK company is 2-3 years. Do you think that some of the problems you highlighted, which I totally agree with, do you think they're exaggerated by the short-termism of profit today at the expense of sustained profitability going forward?
Well, I don't think my view would hold any more weight than anybody else's view in the room, except to say that, I mean, I know a lot of people, friends, colleagues who left. They happen to be American companies. I'm not pointing the finger at American companies who left because of this awful equity investment, short-termism, where they want daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly returns. If you don't get it, you get sacked. But that's not the way to run the company. And in fact, it was David Pearson who wrote to me recently, who was talking about Paul Polman, who got rid of all that short-term reporting. This is Unilever, got rid of all that short-term reporting. And he said, look, I'm not going to do that anymore. And over the past 10 years, he's tripled the share price. So we know that it has a beneficial effect. How do you escape from it? I don't know. Because what we do know is that capitalism is under the spotlight. It's seriously under the spotlight. We can't go on the way we are going now. And if you just take the salaries of people, there's a survey that shows that in 20 years' time, something like 2 people will earn more wealth than 50% of the population. It can't go on like that. So governments will have to find a way of passing legislation. I don't think companies will do it themselves. At the moment, it's all voluntary. But I think we need some kind of governmental intervention to put right the imbalance that we've got at the moment, because it's totally out of balance. Now, I'm a capitalist by upbringing and everything, but it isn't right at the moment. I don't think, I think unless the shareholders join in this revolt, I think we're going to have a long period of struggle before we get some common sense out of it. But in the meantime, we're stuck with short-termism. It's sad, but we haven't stuck with short-termism. But the Paul Polman thing, David, that's a wonderful, wonderful example. And not enough people know about that kind of thing. He wasn't the only thing he did. He got rid of ridiculous budgeting and forecasting. He worked out that Unilever was spending, I don't know, something like $500 million on budgeting a year. He said, this is ridiculous. And then the people were spending more time focusing on the budget than they were on customers. And if you could get a bold chief executive who can do that and transform the company and grow the capital value of the shares like that, those are the kinds of examples that we all look to and say, that's the future. That's got to be the future. Somewhere there. Yes.
Partly a question, partly an observation. We're talking about the valuation of the WeWorks and the Ubers, and some of those are valuing a sort of technology platform which has some future value as it does other things. But then you look at a Facebook that IPO'd with, it hadn't figured out how to monetize its value yet. So it seems like a lot of these, big tech companies, pre-IPO, lots of venture capital money, and it would seem like their value is based very much on the brand at this point and not on anything underlying. And if they were to IPO, then there's the risk that they just sort of collapse. I mean, WeWork didn't manage to IPO, but then a lot of them could just sort of collapse like a flan in a cupboard, because once you start looking at the street, looking at quarterly numbers or annual, semi-annual numbers, and the profitability is not there, you go, oh, we thought that was a great brand, but it isn't. How do you think these sort of modern disruptor
many of
tech
these
brands
companies-
deal with those.
Many of these companies have got to start making profit, haven't they?
Yeah, that's the point. They're not. So can they ever IPO
Yeah.
if all they are is
They
a
may have
name with no
multi-billion
profit?
brand, multi-billion-dollar brands, but if they're not making money, sooner or later this game of cards is going to collapse, isn't it?
Does it collapse before they IPO or after?
Yeah. Well,
When is the brand?
in the meantime, the people who work for those organisations are getting rich, aren't they? And as long as people like us, support LinkedIn, Facebook, and people like that. I mean, do you enjoy Facebook?
No, no.
No, I don't, but lots of people do. Do you enjoy LinkedIn? Do you enjoy all these things? We've got addictions to it, haven't we? And that's what's causing this massive growth. But at the end of the day, the laws of commerce will kick into the national money, and the shareholders will revolt.
But I think the point of the companies that you're talking about is I appreciate that the brand is what attracts people to use those companies, but the value in those companies is the data, and that's why we value the way it is in the marketplace. And nobody fully understands what the value of that data is yet. They think that it's going to be it's already worth trillions. In fact, it's the most valuable asset on the face of the planet as of today. It's now about more valuable than oil, but they don't know how high it's going to go, and they're basing the valuation of the business on the fact that the brand is what's attracting people in to use the companies so that they can collect the data, and there's the value.
But I'm just a general point. I gave up going to conferences years ago because every speaker that ever stood up, they spoke about Coca-Cola and Apple and Facebook and people like that. And I can tell you, they are a million miles removed from the average customer. The average company out there. We're around 95% of all companies are SMEs. If I make mobile toilets in Barnsley, what the hell have Apple got to sell me? With their multi-billion-dollar budgets and things like that. I make mobile toilets in Barnsley. And most of the world is like that. I'm not saying the world makes mobile toilets, but you know what I mean. It's just unrealistic stuff. I much prefer the long-standing brands that have been around for many years, where we studied them, we developed the processes, the theory that underlies them, the consumer behavior, all the rest of it, all that stuff that we teach. Long-term success, not this short-term stuff. I mean, I hope some of these things, go on to be successful. But I'm old enough at 82 to have seen lots of companies come and go. I remember, up to 2000, most of the companies in the FTSE 100 disappeared. Just like, the old Search of Excellence thing, 43 companies, and they all just disappeared because they weren't really excellent. But isn't it interesting how, if you look at the history of brands, Chris and I, this might be a strange conversation, but we're talking about Armitage Shanks today. Now, when the Jets go for what they do to adjust their liquid levels, there's a thing there that says Armitage Shanks. What is it, 300 years old, that brand? 300 years old, been around for years and years and years and years. Now, I'm not emotionally attached to it in any way, shape or form, but I'd like to bet you that industrial business-to-business customers have got a lot of trust in a company like Armitage Shanks. And there are hundreds and hundreds of brands like that that have been around for years and years and years and years, and they get the basics right. And they grow every year, and they're still here. These are the companies that I'm really interested in. These are the companies that you should be teaching about. And yet every lecturer, everybody on planet Earth, they go to a conference, they stand up and talk about Amazon and Google and all the rest of them. For God's sake, that isn't the real world. Oh, sorry. Yes, sir.
At the risk of being contentious, one of your slides earlier says marketing people will fail, paraphrase, because they will apply historic data to the way they predict the future. And one of your slides mentions that the way they predict the future is based on historic data is not the way to do it. I forget which slide it was. But what I'm hearing is that that you're saying the principles of corporate well-being and financial governance and all those things, eventually these companies will fail. And I feel like they're actually creating a new paradigm. At the risk of bringing Donald Trump into it, no one thought he would get into. But Facebook, Google, all these will be super successful because they're not getting the same
The
paradigm.
best companies in the world have always been good at corporate governance and been good citizens and all the rest of it. We had a professor at Cranford who wrote a book about 20 years ago. And he looked at 50 companies, and they were all just grown and grown and grown and grown. Each one of them were good corporate citizens. And the best companies in the world, in the main, have always been good corporate citizens. It's not mutually exclusive. What I'm saying is when you add we'll do a bit of CSR, put it in the mission statement, a bit of CSR, it doesn't work like that. Well, I had this awful decision to make when I was deputy director at Cranfield, and some lunatic came and said we ought to be teaching ethics as a module on the MBA program. I said, over my dead body. I said, ethics should be an integral part of marketing, finance, economics. It's not something you add on. I know, we'll do a bit of ethics, we'll do a bit of CRM, or we'll do a bit of this or the other. The best companies are like that. They're a joy to work for. They're, in the main, they're good citizens. They've got a long way to go, but in the main, they're good citizens. And they're the ones who, generally speaking, continue to succeed, in spite of everything. Yet there are lots of other rogue companies around that do well. Mostly ones who are in a quasi-monopolistic situation. I hate them. I can't say I love the banks, for example. I've been a customer of my bank. I think I'm being recorded here, I've got to be careful. I've been a customer of my bank for 68 years, something like that. And I'll tell you, they don't know why. They don't care about it. They do fantastic branding on it's Lloyd's Bank. They do fantastic branding. Isn't it wonderful? It's not a company I love, never have done, never will do. But no, I'm not going to any other bank. They're just as bad. All banks are just as bad. How do they get away with it? Because they're essential to the economy, isn't it? We won't let them fail, will we? We won't let them fail. So we'll support them. And then you get, where marketing gets a bad name, you get something like Luton Airport. Anybody been to Luton Airport? Wonderful. You get this theoretical bidding takes place. So it's a free enterprise, bidding takes place. Once you win the franchise, you've then got into a monopoly. You can totally screw the passenger, consumer. Like, they charge you a parking, for dropping somebody off, they charge you £2 for a trolley. Oh, it's awful. It's a monopoly. And yet they make money. It's dreadful, isn't it? Dreadful. They make money. There are many, many ways of making money. Put yourself in a little monopolistic situation, niche somewhere, and you'll do well. But I don't support those kinds of things. Yes, ma'am.
So I'm a typical marketing director or an SME organisation who spends a vast amount of their time valuing
Not mobile toilets.
No. Business services law. And I have to do digital, and I have to do advertising, and I have to do events, and I have to do all sorts of things. So in the bit of spare time I have to be valuable to my firm, what would you suggest that I do to help build the brand opportunity?
I would honestly, when I do quite a lot of work with small enterprises, the first thing I always say is please understand the market that you are working with. Fundamentally. You don't have to go to great lengths to do it. I call it market mapping, quantitative market mapping. Work out who the decision makers are. And then, when you've done that, you've got to get into, however crude, some kind of segmentation. And then you've got to get down and say, let's work out what the real needs are of these people. Then we can say, because asking people, as I said earlier, is a waste of time. If I'm making something, let's say, for a factory manager, the last thing in the world I ever want to do is go and ask a factory manager what they want. Just observe the noise, the inconvenience, everything that they go through. Then go back to your factory and make something that makes their life easier, less noisy, less, etc. Don't go and ask them stupid questions. So everything to me always has come down full circle to how does the market work? And that's very difficult today because it's changing very rapidly because of technology. Segmentation hasn't changed, just slightly more difficult. Get the segments right, and then focus on one or two segments and be brilliant at it. Be the best on planet Earth at those segments. But I'll tell you what, price will disappear through the window. Shareholder value added, board of directors will love you. You don't have to be. But the brand, you see I didn't mention the brand? The brand comes at the end of all that, doesn't it? When you put a name on it and you're satisfying people and they're pleased, so that's how a brand becomes famous. I think it's time to go.
Who owns the customers?
Fine.
Yeah, clients.
Because
So nominally the lawyers own the clients.
did you say lawyers?
Yeah.
Are you a lawyer?
No, God.
No, are you?
Not a lawyer?
Do you work for a firm of lawyers?
I do work for a firm of lawyers.
Well, now that's an interesting case, isn't it, in point?
Yes.
Because what they don't understand, and they're beginning to get there, is what I call organisational value co-creation. Everything's down to the individual specialist, the lawyer.
Yeah.
Problem is today you can buy a lawyer from anywhere. They've all been trained in the same place, so there's a sameness about them. What's different is what I said an hour ago. Organisational value co-creation is the way your organisation understands and relates to individual clients. And once you get that right, I'll tell you what, again, forget fees, forget price, they'll love you to death. But lawyers are bad at doing that.
Yeah.
The culture's all right. Anyway, maybe I should talk to you separately about it. Yes.
So I'm coming from a startup company that actually trying to disrupt insurance with all this technology, AI, and machine learning. And it's already given that 90% of startups fail, right? And we've been hammering down on this market research, and like you said, it fails. And so what we've been doing now is actually just kind of come up with this product validation stage where we go to the insurers and sell like the idea, but there seems to be no trust. I think that's the hard part that we're trying to kind of close down, because insurance industry is kind of not trustful of technology. So we're like, where do we kind of like, how do we answer that?
Well, how do you build up trust? I mean, how does anybody build up trust? If I can buy it from anywhere, it's pretty well the same as anything else can do. I'm going to buy the price. If I really trust you, and I've got some admiration for the brand, then I'll deal with you and I'll give you preference over everybody else. But how on earth do you do it? As I said in my last slide, it takes years and years and years of investment, hard work. The whole organisation's got to believe in it, and it's getting harder and harder. But the same rules still apply. There's a glass of Nigeria Sharp waiting downstairs for me. So I just wish you all happy branding, ladies and gentlemen. And if anybody has any questions, just like that one, for example, drop me an email. Drop my email address. I'll see what I can do. So thank you for coming, ladies and gentlemen. Very kind of you.